Episode 4 of Spooktober, a Hotel Transylvania fanfiction named There's a First Time for Everything by Sweet Pop 1997. Jonathan couldn't have been happier. Discovering the hotel full of monsters along with falling in love with Mavis the vampire and then getting to marry her was the greatest experience he'd ever had. He was human, that much was true. But because they zinged, Drac had casted a spell on Johnny that would thankfully let him become immortal, like Mavis, while letting him remain human in all other ways. On Mavis's birthday, when she and Johnny had gotten married in their Hawaii clothes, Eunice and Wanda had insisted that they give Mavis and Johnny a real wedding. One with a white dress and flowers and a honeymoon. The whole shebang. Jonathan and Mavis wholeheartedly agreed, and within a week, the Hotel Transylvania was turned into a beautiful wedding hall, with black and red roses adorning every nook and cranny, silk draping from the ceiling, and a gorgeous marble pulpit, complete with cushioned seats ready for the guests. Jonathan had even invited his family all the way to Hotel Transylvania to attend the wedding as well. Nervous and terrified that they'd be freaked out and disgusted that he was marrying an 118-year-old vampire. But instead, Jonathan's 6 brothers, mother and father, cousins, aunts, uncles, loved Mavis and Drac, and all the other monsters. The day of the wedding couldn't have been more marvelous. Johnny woke up grinning from ear to ear, imagining how Mavis will look in her wedding dress, and about how in only several hours they would be consuming their love for one another. Sex was never much of a reality for him. He was 21 and still a virgin for God's sake. But then again, he was saving himself for marriage, because even though monsters exist, God is more important, and he listens to the word of Jesus Christ, as well as Mavis. He remembered that Mavis was 118, and she also had never been with a guy with 4 because she was saving herself for marriage. Girls wasn't his thing. However, he remembered all about how pathetic he was in high school, getting weird glances from all of the girls because of his gingerish hair and not very muscular physique. All of them just wanted a jock, so Johnny never dated anyone. Also, he needed to leave room for God, unless he was marrying someone he could make love to, or just cuddle and spoon with. It wasn't just his sinful masturbation that made him desire a woman in his life, though instead, it was watching people around him being so in love with each other that made him long for a relationship. It was what he was taught his entire life. He was taught that God only approved of sex after marriage, and that masturbation was a sin. And he did confess to the priest about his masturbation, and he had stopped it, but he couldn't help the fact that he was about to marry and lose his virginity for the first time. His fantasies drove him crazy. Mavis being completely naked once she switched from bat to human for him. Mavis as a hot, sexy teacher with thigh-high black stockings and a see-through white shirt, complete with a black micro miniskirt. Mavis dressed up in an innocent little nurse, wearing red, see-through lingerie under her simple white cotton dress. It was driving Johnny so insane, so wild, because they had only given and received innocent kisses from each other, making sure to make room for God, silently waiting for their true wedding night to go all the way. It was a hard wait, but oh sweet God, would it be worth it for both of them? Johnny whistled as he headed for the shower, bathing every nook and cranny of his body, especially his nether regions. After all, it couldn't be a sin if he was just washing himself. Well, morning. Since morning was like night for monsters, the new sleeping pattern had thrown Johnny off a little bit, but he soon got the hang of things and enjoyed getting to sleep all day and party all night. Johnny makes sure he smelt musky and woodsy, manly and fresh, and most importantly, clean. He cleansed his wild ginger locks twice, then stepped out of the shower, toweling himself. He looked in the mirror. Not too shabby. Skinny, sinewy muscles will do, I guess. I look better than some guys, to be honest. Johnny examined his chest hair. There was a light sprinkling of ginger hair on his pecs and abdomen, and his little happy trail of hair running from his navel down to his nether regions. Just enough hair for Mavis to run her fingers through, Johnny thought dirtily, goosebumps rising on his wet flesh. He swiped some deodorant on his armpits and then went to work shaving what little facial stubble he had collected in 2 days. His hair grew so fast, though, by morning he would most likely have some prickly stubble on his jaw and upper lip. Once he felt thoroughly groomed, he walked into the lobby, ready to take part in the greatest day of his existence. When he saw the beautiful cushioned seats, the roses, the silk, the pulpit, he knew he was ready to make love forever in eternity. Dressed in a full tuxedo, he received shocked and delighted faces from Frank, Griffin, Wayne, and Murray. They kept punching his shoulder, telling him how handsome he looked, giving him explicit and detailed sex advice for their own experiences. Although it made Johnny blush beet red, what they told him was actually pretty helpful. Even though he did know a lot of stuff from high school tales from his friends, this was different. This was about making love. That was different than the absolutely unemotional, charged concept of porn or the inexperienced stories of his friends. After laughing and joking around and hearing last bits of advice, Johnny and the guys had heard the wedding bells, signaling the start of the wedding. They all rushed for the pulpit to get into their places, giving Johnny their final good luck wishes as they stood as grooms right behind him. Johnny saw how everyone was there watching, waiting so eagerly for the bride to come in. When Mavis was walked in by Dracula, Johnny gasped and could feel tears beginning to form in his amber eyes. She looked so breathtaking and flawless in the vintage white lace dress, the long veil covering her porcelain, innocent face. There were tears dripping from her eyes as well as she stood at the altar across from Johnny. They just smiled at each other, laughing in raw and true joy. Once they said their vows and slipped the rings on each other's fingers, it was time for the infamous kiss. Johnny's lips touched Mavis's with the most intense love and tender care that he could ever possibly give, giving in to his world of emotion for her. She gave into that moment as well, accepting the beautiful intimacy of their swirling feelings that flowed between them in the simple action of their kiss. The reception was full of singing and dancing and eating, happy conversations, speeches, and laughter. It passed very quickly, though, and before they knew it, Mavis and Johnny were left alone in the reception hall, tired and ready to sleep once everything had been cleaned up. Johnny picked Mavis up bridal style in his arms and carried her gently up the stairs to the honeymoon suite on the very top floor. In a hidden room, he kissed her as he opened the door, then walked her lovingly towards the bed, setting her down as if she was nothing more than a fragile, precious doll. She hit the soft covers of the bed, sighing in content at the feeling of the silk and cotton on the bed and the dress against her skin. Johnny looked down at her at once, locking her amber orbs in her cerulean ones. He softly pressed his lips to her own, filling Mavis with butterflies and a fluttering in her heart and stomach. The kisses got deeper over a matter of several minutes, Johnny's tongue beginning to slip smoothly and comforting into Mavis's mouth. Although the feeling was foreign to Mavis in the beginning, she was a quick learner, and sure enough, she and Johnny were battling for dominance with their tongues. A moan slipped from both of their mouths when Mavis grabbed his tongue skillfully with her teeth and began to suckle, causing the atmosphere between the youngly newlyweds to switch from innocent and playful to filled with lust and tension. Johnny gulped, then backed from their heated make-out session. "Mavis, are you ready to do this with me? We don't have to. I just need your confirmation after all, consent is key." He grinned cheekily and wagged his eyebrows, a bit proud of himself for thinking of the Twilight Maiden thing. Mavis's eyes sparkled with passion and ruthless love. She smiled with her bright eye teeth glimmering in the light of the room as she spoke her answer. Johnny, there's nothing more that I wanted to do than be intimate with my husband. We're finally together, so what better way to celebrate than to have some fun with the person I love most? Tonight, I'm giving it all, my all to you, Johnny. It's all yours, and all of me. Johnny's mouth was hanging agape from Mavis's beautiful words, and if he wasn't already hard enough, he didn't know what else could possibly make his boner become more aroused. Before his brain could ask him how much more he can take, Mavis was slipping herself out of her gown. Johnny automatically began to undress himself as well, but hardly comprehending the majesty of what was happening to him. When Johnny had discarded all articles of clothing except for his underwear, he looked up, and what he saw made his mouth go dry and his erection begin to weep. There stood Mavis, dressed in all white, virginal lace chemise that was complete see-through, adorned with chiffon and silk. He couldn't help but rake his eyes up and down her body hungrily, noticed that the way her perky, round breast nipples had hardened in arousal, or the way that he could see straight through to her small, womanly curves. The part that fascinated him the most, though, was the fact that she was lacking any pubic hair. She went bare and waxed, Brazilian, for me. Oh, sweet Jesus, I'll jizz before she even touches me, he thought to himself. He noticed Mavis blushing from head to toe, obviously starting to feel a bit self-conscious and modest. Johnny quickly pulled himself to her side and began peppering her face with kisses, murmuring precious words of love and affection to her. His lips soon found their way to her neck, where the smooth, untouched porcelain skin began to receive attention from his mouth. As he gently nibbled and licked and kissed, Mavis began releasing little moans of wanton innocence, which hit straight into Johnny's ego and crotch. He took an adventurous turn and began to nibble her ear, whispering things that only he had fantasized about into her ear. Such things as, "Look at you, more beautiful than the stars or the sun. Your body was made for love. I've dreamed about this for so long, and now I have you. You're so perfect, Mavis. I can't wait to watch you come for me." Of course, Johnny had seen tits many times, but did porn really count? He had never seen real, live, natural breasts, the way that they perked, the fact that he was about to see Mavis's excited brain into a frenzy of lust and want. He gulped slowly, beholding down the silken straps of her gown, his nimble fingers shaking as he reached for the hem. When his hands touched the cashmere skin of her thighs, he felt triangles shoot all the way up from his groin, up his spine. Shivering in delight, Mavis was consenting to him so easily, letting him take full control and submitting. He threw the piece of garment on the crumpled heap of clothing next to the bed. When Johnny looked back at her, his heart suddenly became caught in his throat. There, sitting in front of him, was a pair of pale, perky, round, silky, plush, warm, feminine globes with small, dusky pink nipples. She was perfect, her areolas especially firm, looking to be about a handful from Johnny's eyes. By this time, Johnny was quivering with excitement and nervousness. He decided to go on total feelings and instincts, going on a trial and error type of method to pleasure Mavis. After adjusting his poor erection to some minimal comfort in his boxers, he leaned down and took Mavis's earlobe between his teeth and started to suckle, as his other hand slowly drifted towards Mavis's right areola, slowly rolling the fleshy and hard pink nub between his fingers. Mavis moaned Johnny's name and dug her nails into his shoulders. His lips moved to her neck, and slowly taking the flesh there between his lips and sucking gently, alternating between licks while he continued to fondle her breast in his palms. After Mavis started to beg, with moans of, "Please, Johnny," and "more," he decided to finally venture his mouth to more pressing regions. He kissed down her throat to her collarbone, and then to the valley between her breasts. Johnny had to refrain from ejaculating right there, as he realized that his face was sandwiched right between the pillow-like breasts that were her boobs. He smelt her skin, then decided to take a taste of the sweetness. He slicked slowly, keenly, and heard Mavis whine with longing, her skin tasting like milk. Okay, enough playing around. Let's get these lips and let's get sweet things are real tasting, Johnny thought to himself as he nuzzled her breast, then proceeded to peck all over them with slow, open-mouthed kisses until he reached her nipples. He pulled the nipple into his lips and suckled. The reaction of Mavis digging her fingers into his hair and sighing was enough to make him dizzy with satisfaction. He got bolder, placing his mouth over the whole thing and suckling on it like it was a baby to a mother. Mavis was panting and making sure that Johnny thought could only come from angles. He wanted to move on, give her more, give her what she actually needed. What he was about to do was what had filled with his dreams since he had met Mavis, something that aroused him to absolutely no comparison. Finally getting to actually taste her milky white lips and mouth and tongue, to see her experience an orgasm right in front of his eyes as he laps up her sweet nectar. He had jerked himself off to the thought of eating her out many times, wanting the taste of her moist flesh and squirt juice. The night was far from over. This will be the greatest night of your life, he promised. To be continued.